So as the heat wave continues, this sun is absolutely punishing our lawns. We've got a prevailing wind, which is just absolutely drying our lawns out even more so. So today, we're going to look at the signs of drought, what to look out for, and I'm going to show you a few ways that we're watering. All right, so the first thing you need to look out for when your lawn is really dry is what I call the brillo pad effect. Now this is where the lawn starts to turn black. It gets like a black sheen on the top. And why I call it the brillo pad effect is because if you stand on it, it doesn't come back and it goes all silver and wiry, whereas if I do that where it's not dried out, it comes back up. So we've got a patch there, and if I show you just over here, I'll show you a patch there where I've already stood. So you see how it's not come back. Now if you water that, it'll just stay flat, but if you catch it at this point, not all is lost. If you water that now copiously, like for a couple of minutes in that one spot, in half an hour that patch will have gone. It's when you start leaving it beyond that point is when it starts to go brown, and it'll take even longer to come back. And if it's a certain kind of grass, it might not come back. So you need to act now when you see it like this, and you've no problem in it coming back. Generally, this lawn is in good nick. I've just let it go just to show you really, but I can get this back. Not put anything on here since we did the King's coronation video, other than Soper and Grace. We've just mixed that in our tank in the back and just been spraying that on just because we've had no rain, and I don't want to put any products on because this is happening quite a lot. We're watering it every other day, but with this wind that is just blowing through all the time, as I mentioned before, it's just absolutely crucifying it. I gave it 1,000 litres of water the other night, and even though that's only 48 hours ago, just under 48 hours ago, it's starting to go already. It's had wetting agents, but the thing is, it's great having a sand-based lawn for drainage, which is great, but when we get a drought, it's not so good. You actually need that water retention. So it's just a lesser of two evils really, but having the sand base generally I think is better because when it is wet and when it is raining a lot, obviously it's draining, but just when you get a drought, it dries out quicker. But here we've got the capabilities to keep it watered, and I'll go and show you that now, what we've got. So a similar story in the back. If you remember when we were here last time, we had a bit of a patch from the dog, and it was the dog because that is lovely and green and dead in the middle still, so we're waiting for that to die back. We're planning on doing a couple of renovations here in the front and in the back, just micro, just because this hasn't, what happened was after that party, well during that party, this had over 100 people dancing on it and it looked an absolute mess. It was so awful that I just couldn't bring myself to actually take a photo of it and show you because I was just so disappointed. But it's coming back. Again, sand based. This is actually like 70-30, like top, like Premier League quality top dressing from. I think it was Tarmac Top Spot we got this from. Well, it was already here when I turned up, but that's where we got it from. So it dries out really quick. This area even more so. I'll just show you over here now. I didn't actually need to add any more seed. This just came through on its own. Still a bit patchy in places, but really happy with that. The pansies are looking lovely now. And this area as well, I didn't add any seed there and it came back. A few bits of annual meadowgrass knocking about, but we just dug those out as we've come across them. But I really think I'm on top of that now here. So what I'm going to do is now I'm just going to show you around the back and show you our irrigation system. Okay, let me introduce you to our pump for our irrigation system. We've got a 3,500 litre per hour pump. Now this thing on top here, this is a special piece of kit. What this enables us to do is we turn the tap on around the side and this picks up that the water flow is coming through, and what it will do is if the pump runs dry in terms of the tank empties and there's no water going through, what would happen is if this wasn't on there, the pump would burn out, and that would cost us a lot of money because it's like 400 quid. So what that does is it senses that there's no water going through and it'll shut the pump off for us, so we don't have to worry about burning the pump out, which is a good bit of kit. So I'll show you the tank now. So what it is the water comes in, the tank's just around there, so it comes in through here, up through there, out through this pipe, and that goes all the way around the garden, which we've not fitted totally yet. That's going to get us to the front eventually, but at the minute we're working off that. So that's 32mm pipe there, and then we're on an inch hose here, so that's quite a big bit of hose pipe. So what we've got is we've got our 1,000 litre tank right here. Now I did this bit last week, so we've got our water in there. That's full to the top. If you have a look in there, we've just got a toilet cistern, I think it ball cock in there. I fitted this last week. a year on, we've just been filling it up by hand. So what we did was, I've got a flexi tap connector from the tap, just an outside tap, so we can leave that on now. It's got a flexi tap, and then we've got a bit of HDP pipe or whatever, push fit, and then we've got a non-return valve. Now I know why you're asking, why have you got a non-return valve? Is because for whatever reason, if there's something happens somewhere along the line back in the house, this water could get sucked into the mains. Now if I've decided to put wetting agent in here, then that means wetting agent will get sucked into the drinking water and everybody will start consuming drinking water, and it doesn't just go back to the house. I think it could end up in the whole street. So we've got to put a non-return valve on, and then what that does, then we've got another bit of push fit into another flexi connector, just a double-ended tap connector. That then goes into the ball cock, as I've just showed you. I'm going to do something really dangerous now, just hope I don't drop my phone. Hopefully you can see it. I don't know if you can see that, but you can see actually the water is actually steaming in there. A lot of heat in there. So that's what happens. So that means what we're doing is, when we're emptying the tank, that water is being refilled as soon as that starts to empty. So we get whatever that flow is in, we get 1,000 litres plus whatever tax. So say it takes 15 minutes to empty that, we would get whatever 15 minutes worth of how long that takes to fill in 15 minutes. So we get a bit more water. So that goes along here in this grey pipe that we've got there. We've got another tap there which is going to be for our sprinklers when we put those in. We just need to connect that up. But at the minute we're just going up here, we've just ran it off, and then we've got our tap. So if I was to turn that, then the system that on top of the pump would pick up that the water's flowing through and turn it on. And at the minute I'm just running it through an adapted, we're using a domestic sprinkler just because you can't on a normal fitting. But what I've done is I've done like a bit of a reducer. So I've got my inch hose pipe here, and with these Geek tail hoses here, they're the same size, but that's a half inch reducer, and then we can just use that end connector for the hose. Whereas if we were to use our lamps, which we've been using with our rolls on, our professional one, like a watering can effect, but it's like the most powerful watering can in the world, and we just stick that on the end, and we've got a little valve there for shutting it off. But what I want to do is, sometimes when I just want to crack on with some jobs, I can't, because I'm just doing it by hand, whereas now I can work a domestic sprinkler on it, and just, if we put it on full whack, it can end up damaging it, because what happens is that water coming into that small pipe creates heat, which slows the water down, so you could end up not getting the full potential and damaging things. So what I do is to just turn the tap on slightly, and that gives us enough power to drive that. And I know what you're asking is, why bother with doing all this? Because the domestic pressure at this house doesn't work one of these or an impulse sprinkler, like the England cricket team, where it goes. I'll do a demonstration of that after, and I'll show you the difference between this and the domestic pressure, and you can see the difference as to why we've done it, and it just speeds up my time and makes my time more efficient. So what I'll do now is I'm going to set things up, and we'll have a look at the difference in pressure so you can see for yourself. Okay, so I'm ready to start watering now. So all we do is we just turn our pump on, and we can see that full up already. If I was to take that off, that would just fly. It flies for about 10 meters before it drops, so it's really powerful. You wouldn't want to be in the way of that. Right, okay, so I've now got my water coming from my tank, which is totally supplied from the tank, and this is totally supplied from the tap. So we've got two outlets here, but this one, as you can see, does that. Not very good. So I'll just lock that on, and then I'll turn this one on, and you'll see the difference straight away. Look at the difference. So we can get much more watering done. So we can do it like this if we want. You can really direct it down, but I'll show you what I do just to get more water on quicker, because obviously when you have a rose on the top, it is actually slowing the water flow down somewhat. So what I do is this. Just turn those off. Turn the valve off. And I'll just take this end off, and it comes out like a fireman's hose. So I can just target certain areas very quickly, just to give those a good soak in. Now you can see where they are because they've started to go black. Now these will be like where there's drainage channels and there's not as much root zone there. And obviously along the edge, just to look out for as well, where the concrete gets very hot and that dries the roots out even quicker. And in this garden now, since they've had the bar area built, we've got the bounce back off the glass, which is causing problems here as well, which is what we never had before. So there's all different kinds of heat damage that we get. So that's concrete, glass and drainage causes the bad burn as well. And obviously just the sun pounding on the ground. Even soil dries out eventually. But like I said in the front, sand base is just better. Not great for the watering in the summer when it's hot, but going forward in the winter it's best because the water that we get lots of it, drains away. So what I'll do is now, I'll show you a few different kinds of sprinklers that I've got, and we'll show you the difference as to why we use this as well, because a lot of the sprinklers need a certain barrage of pressure to work, and this garden, the tap here, just doesn't deliver that output. Now, do you remember what I said right in the front, when you've got the brillo pad effect, the water will just make that go really flat. So we can see where there's no dehydration of the turf. Even if I go really close, the lawn doesn't flatten. But where this dehydration pocket is, you can see that that doesn't come back up. So that's where you know you need to focus your attention. We've got a few areas like that. We've got one there. That's not as bad. We've just caught that in time. The front this year, it surprised me really, because we did a load of work adding the field compost number 4 to it to give it some water retention, and it's in the shade a lot of the time, but it just goes to show you that how hot it's been this period of this year, just because how soon that has dried out. We've never had it like that before. Even when it was brand new 6 years ago and we re-turfed it, we never had this issue. So it's just this year it's just been really excessively dry, and with that wind, it's just so windy all the time, it absolutely does my head in. If I was ever to leave this profession, which I'm not doing, it would be because of the wind, honestly. It drives me insane. Okay, common question in the group is what sprinkler shall I use? I like two kinds of sprinklers. I like the impulse sprinkler and I like an oscillating sprinkler. This is one where you really get a good covering and you don't really have to do much in terms of keep moving it, because you get quite a lot of distance and it'll look after itself. And it's just got these little orange things here, which means you can do quadrants or you can do a full circle and it'll always come back on itself. But for working this, you need minimum like 2 bar pressure. Now, some houses only have 1.5, and here this won't work on a domestic tap. So I'm going to show you what happens when we put this in and we want to use this one. It'll do one way, but it doesn't have the power to come back on itself, so it just stays there. So as you can see, it's not actually moving, it's just staying where it is. I thought it was actually working then, it was going to show me up, but no, it's just staying where it is. Not very efficient. Just going to water that. If you're just watering one area, then maybe you could get away with it. But because I want to put this down and do the whole lawn in a circle, we need proper pressure. So let's just swap it over to this one and we'll show you what this one does on tap pressure. This one should be a little bit better. Then what I'll do is I'll move it a little bit both ways and then it can come back on itself and I can get out of the way. Now the reason I like these two is what I've just said. I can get out of the way and I can point it at certain angles so I'm not in its way. But you get some where the water comes out as soon as you turn the tap on and there's just no way of getting near it to turn it, to change the spray that it comes out, or to get near it to move it, so you've got to pull it with the hose. So I don't like those ones, so I always go for these two. This is Gardena Impulse and this is an oscillating. This is a hose lock one, this is a Gardena Impulse one. So put that on. You can see you get quite a good spread with that, and it does come back on itself, but when it's like this, so sunny, we need a lot more water coming out, so we can see it'll do a job, but we'll be here all day waiting for it, and by the time that's landed up, the sun will have dried up. So what I'll do now is I'll set these two up on our irrigation system and I'll show you the difference. And this one waters the garden in one go, or based on the irrigation tank that we've got, and I'll show you this one. I've not actually tried this one yet on the irrigation system, so it's a first for me, so you'll see it as well as I do for the first time. So let's have a go. Okay, why am I over here, do you ask? It's because I don't know how far this is going to come out, so I'm going to set it up. So I've got our little adapted bit which I can put on. I'll stick it on there, put it on. Now what I'm going to do is, I'm just going to keep it a little bit open. I don't want it going all the way over there, but it'll show you the power that it has to go back on itself and actually work. So we'll just do that. And I'll just set it down a little bit just so the water flow down there. Okay, so I'll go over to the tap and turn it on and we'll have a look. Here we go. Yeah, that's really good. So that's on full. If I now so you can see now the difference, it's coming back on itself, no problem. It's quite low. So if I just turn this tab back, I get it quite high. So really we can get a good section of this garden done in one rotation. Always just spend a couple of minutes just getting it right, just so you're not wasting water in the borders. You know, you want all the water to go on the lawn. And yeah, you see, working perfectly. I don't know if it's getting the camera, but if there's drops on the screen, I apologise. But you can see the difference between a better pump, 3,500 litres output a minute, and domestic tap pressure. I could sit here and watch all day this. Well, I said before I'd show you an example of me doing the England cricket team dance. There you go, that's that. And I'm actually getting wet. It looks like I've weed in my pants. Oh, God's sake. Wet through. And that's why I'm wet through. The Jubilee clip is under so much pressure from the 3,500 output, it's actually sprung a leak, and that's why I'm wet through. Just look at my pants. Absolutely wet through. But hopefully I'll dry up in no time. So I'll go and get in the sun and we'll dry up. I'll just show you from this angle what it looks like. Beautiful. So I can now crack on with some other jobs like weeding the borders, etc, etc. And I don't need to stand here by hand watering everything. This is going to work wonders around the front. But what I have to do is for the front garden at the minute, just because the pipework isn't connected up yet, I have to pull this inch hose all the way down the side to the front, over the fence, and I can do exactly the same around the front. So let's go and do that now. Okay, so before I go around the front, just said I'd show you the other sprinkler on the pump off the irrigation system. As you can see, that is quite high. I don't know if you can make that out, but it's all the way up there at its highest. And when I set this right, I can actually do the whole garden on one position rather than having to move it. So this kind of sprinkler is for when your lawn's really hydrated as it is, and you don't really need to worry about getting it in, but you just want to give it a water so you could get in like coverage, maximum coverage over the whole lawn rather than targeting specific areas. So this is just like a top-up sprinkler, if you like, just to maintain what you've already done, which is good practice to get loads of water on before a drought, and then you've got enough in the tank, so then you're just topping up the system rather than going to empty all the time. I know in some areas it's going to do that, like around the front we've got areas where it's topped up, but there's other areas where it's drains more. We've got a few drains, so we need to take more care of those. But good practice to get loads of water in the ground and then top up when needed. Be proactive rather than reactive. So yeah, lovely day as well. So what I'm doing now is I'm just concentrating on these areas that have gone black. Now, one of the questions you're probably asking is it okay to mow when the lawn's under stress like this in areas? I do, and it's absolutely fine because it lets you know where the areas are even more so, because once you've been over with your mower, you can see exactly which areas need doing because it's pressed down that brillo pad effect, and it looks like it's all silvery and wiry, and it makes it more visible. So some areas that you might have thought are fine show up after a mow. And to be honest with you, by the time the mower's been over it, it's actually collapsed. So therefore it's not actually going to get cut or anything or come under any more stress. And I've done that several times on this front lawn, about 2 weeks ago. Didn't quite make it for a couple of days just because I couldn't make it. And I turned up just in the nick of time. The whole lawn had gone black and I was like, oh my God, I'll give it such a good watering the other day. And within 2 days it had just absolutely dried out. So what I did was added some wetting agent to the tank, and then that enabled wetting agent to come straight out of here, so no matter where I watered it had wetting agent. Well, there's just some areas where there's drains in here from previous times before me where the water is going. There'll be tree roots over there, especially here. There's a lot of tree roots in this camellia. Along the hedge, along the beach hedge there, we've got loads. So not only we've got the grass sucking water out of the grass, we've got all the shrubs around it, box hedge especially as well. Lots of little fibrous roots, and they're sucking water out, sucking the life out of the lawn. You could call that the wife, couldn't you? Sucking the life out of it. She doesn't watch, so you're all right. But yes, I'll just concentrate on these areas, and where they don't come back, you know, that's where the area is. You can just do a circle like that, and I know that area is fine, so I'll just concentrate on the middle. Again, next week we're going to be doing a mini renovation on this, giving it a little verticut, a little scarify, get some liquids on, get some granular products on, another wetting agent, and then this will be ready for the next few weeks ahead, ready for the summer, because hopefully there's some rain due. There has to be. It can't carry on like this, can it? Because we don't want another hosepipe ban. We really don't. We really don't want that. So what I'll do is in a sec, I'll just concentrate on all these areas, and I'll get that sprinkler on, and we can have a look at how it works on here as well. I've tightened up this Jubilee clip so it's not getting losing water at the back end. I've dried off now. Always as well, got to pay attention to this tarmac edge, because that's getting the road, drying it out. And I'll show you under here after. We're still looking really nice under here, even though it's in the shade. We can get grass growing in the shade here. No problem at all. So how do you water at your place? Do you prefer hand watering, or do you have a sprinkler? We're doing it by hand's alright, every now and then I guess. You know, I get bored, I'm here doing this and then got to go somewhere else and do the same. And you just think, oh my hard work's going to waste, but this is just a different kind of lawn care at the minute. We're just trying to keep it alive. We don't want to go on with any products because we don't want to stress it out. These areas where it's stressed, we don't really want to be going on with any feeds or anything. So Pro and Grace, fantastic, no problem, because that's not really, it's nutrition but in a different way. It's not your macro or micronutrients that. But if you put some nitrogen on, it's going to burn this even more, so try and stay away from that. The best cure for a dried out lawn in the main is water. Like I say, we can add the Soap and Grace to that, and wetting agent, no problem. I'll get that water in, but try and stay away from anything. I know all of you don't use my products, but some of you like to use a all-in-one moss killer, weed killer, fertiliser. That is just like lawn suicide. If you want to kill your lawn, just go right ahead and do that. Try and stay away from using liquid weed killers as well in times of drought, because that ain't good. All these things I've already done over the years and upset people's lawns. That's how you learn the hard way sometimes. But yeah, so I'll just carry on, and then we'll get that sprinkler on. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to go to another job, and I'm going to show you what we did last year as well. Just if you haven't got the funds to do a big tank like that and have the big 3,500 litre pump all plumbed in and everything, there is a cheaper way, and I'll show you that at the next job. So what we'll do is we'll get this watered, and then we'll see you over there at Falmer, Britain's best lawn. Okay, so I did say before we go, just show you under the tree. looking really healthy. So you can get grass growing in the shade. Just got to do what I do and you'll be absolutely fine. So yeah, a bit of bird plop knocking about, and these areas dry out just because it's so dry along here with the hedge. When that comes back, that'll be fine. Again, over here in the shade, this doesn't actually see any sunlight whatsoever, so we're doing really well to keep this going for as long as we have done. So you've just got the sprinkler on, just watering that bit over there. So windy, that's why I'm more this way. I just feel like when I did it down there, it was just blowing back, so this way it's more efficient getting that water. So you can see now it's blackening off quite a lot, but in the main we're looking good. Mini renovation next week. Week after that we're back to being beautifully striped and tartan, and hopefully a bit of rain as well. I mean, as much as your tap water does a job, it's just not as good as rainwater, because the thing with tap water is it's just got loads of additives to it to clean it, and I think there's like chromium V5 in there and all kinds of other stuff, fluoride and everything else, whereas rainwater is just natural and it's got nothing in it really. It might have trace elements of all those things, but not as much. So rainwater is always best. Yeah, looking good. Right, we'll see you over at Farmer Britain's Best Lawn and we'll have a look at that. Alright, so welcome back to this garden. We're back at Farmer Britain's Best Lawn. I'm going to show you what setup we've got up here. We've got a 100-litre tub, which is an old fertiliser tub which I've brought. Filled this with water, and down there we've got a hose lock Jet 3000 pump, 3000 litres an hour. I don't think it delivers that output depending on how long the hose is and how long this is. So if you really make this really short and the hose really short, you'll get a lot further output, but the longer your hose, the less pressure you're going to get. So what we do is we just fill this every time we want to water, but what we could do is we could plumb it in like we have done at Howard's, but then it will be a permanent fixture, which I'm not sure they want. So what happens here is that the water pressure is so low that it just makes watering this garden unfeasible really. It just takes up too much time. So we've got this in, does a great job. I'll show you now how good a job it actually does. Okay, first of all, if you're wondering why this lawn looks so green, it's because I fed it with Equilibrium last Thursday, so a week ago. Looking really green, it's coming on. Still not happy, but we're getting there. Just can't get enough water on. Even though we put all the products on, wetting agents, just we need that rain. So I'll show you the difference between the house and the pump. So this is the house. I've used the same size nozzle just to make it even. So that's what we've got to contend with, is just water pressure from the mains. And then this is the tap from the pump. So you can see how far that actually goes, the difference. Yeah? So it makes all the difference, speeds up watering, makes it more efficient for time wise, and your sprinkle work better as well. So if you want that, stick with your tap. If you want to invest, get one of these. Just getting back to the vat we put the water in, which is the fertiliser tub. Could be anything, could be a wheelie bin, could be an old bath, anything. As long as it's watertight, you can use it. So let's crack on with the watering. Just to give me some extra time, I'm just going to put this one on the sprinkler, because this will work an oscillating sprinkler ever so gently, and I'll get on with the main watering with this by hand. Okay, so I'm just going to crack on with my watering duties. We'll have a catch up here next time we're at this job. It's looking alright, not 100% happy, but we're getting there. Hopefully some rain will come by then. Hope you've learned something today on watering your garden, making it easier, and which sprinkler to choose. Like I said, I like the oscillating or the impulse one. I think they're the best ones. So until the next time we meet, take care, and we'll see you soon. And don't forget to like and subscribe.